Hi, everyone. I'm Ted.Thomas, and welcome. And my guest is?
Darlin.
Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about tax liens and deeds. And let's face it, everything isn't perfect. So you got involved, you learned a little bit about it. Why don't we learn about some of the problems that could happen? Now, let me tell you a little bit about Puff. She started out with no real estate experience. She did have business experience, but it turned out that she ended up losing a lot of money because she got involved just like everybody else did, and this whole market came down crashing on top of all of us. So we all lost a lot of money. And so Puff learned how to do this, and you know, she just is a person that would persevere and stay with it. So we're going to talk about not about how much money she made along the line. We're going to talk about some of the problems that actually took place. So Puff, let's talk about one property that I can remember the night you called me on the phone and said, Ted, there's an office condo. Can I buy an office condo?
Yes.
And I said, well, sure. It all depends upon buy it low so that you have some equity that you could sell, right? All right, so tell us a little bit about that. Tell us the good part. You went to the auction. Tell us a little bit about that. For someone that's brand new, they'll need to know that you went to an auction about that. So it came up for tax sale auction, right?
Yes, it came up in the tax auction, and I was very excited because there were actually 3 of them.
3 office condos.
Yes,
right.
And I bid on all 3. I got overbid based on your parameters and my research and everything for the first 2, but I got the 3rd one, and I was so excited. And then I learned there were some interesting things that can happen. I had just learned about something called a quiet title, which when you buy higher priced properties, if you're going to sell them, then you need to be able to make sure that the person buying them can buy title insurance. And sometimes with tax deeds, that's not easily done. Even though all of the liens, except for the governmental liens, are wiped out, everybody else out there who didn't take your course doesn't know that.
Right.
And so they question, and so you have to do this. So I found a very good attorney, and I hired him to quiet the title, which just meant making sure that everybody in the background that we had found and that a formal title search done by a different title agent than the county.
Okay, so that we simplify this. This is a process that takes 2 or 3 months. Is that about right?
It's supposed to take, usually the average is maybe 4 months, but...
Okay, so let's say 4 months, and what's it cost?
It depends on the part of the country you live in.
Give me a round number.
What I had heard was $2,500.
$2,500. Did you spend more than that or less?
I spent less.
You spent less. Okay,
yes.
Good. Okay, so for $2,500, you're going to have to do this quiet title. So let me get by that because that's not going to be a big challenge. There's going to be an attorney in your county or someone that can refer and do that. So I don't want to spend time on that, but I do want to spend time on what happened when you got to this property. Now, first of all, you did get a deed, which is just a piece of paper, right? So
yes.
The county gave you a deed, so now you own the property.
Absolutely.
Now, tell us a little bit about what happened when you got there. So this was how big and what did it look like and whatever. I'm not looking to find out that they had dirt in there. I'm looking to find out what the unit was.
Yeah. The unit it's a small office complex in a very good part of town.
Okay, good.
Nice part of town, a good area for professional services and that sort of thing.
Good.
And my unit is 1,030 square feet, and all of the units are the same size. There's 4 on the floor. The 2 end ones were slightly smaller, and the 2 middle ones were the same size, but they all basically were about the same.
Okay, so now with that said, let me interrupt you again. I'm oversimplifying, and you have a tremendous amount of complexity in your mind, but I don't want them to get that. I just want to get the problem. So if I said this was the 1,000 square feet, like this piece of paper, okay, that's 1,000 square feet you bought, right?
Yes.
And you got that, so you're a legitimate owner now, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, but was the 1,000 square feet there?
The 1,000 square feet was right here. However, it was open framing because an older gentleman had owned it. He'd actually owned all 3 of them, and he never finished them out. So there was open framing, and there were walls
now,
that
does
had...
that mean the divisions between the...
Yeah,
what open framing means?
It was set up where there were actually 5 offices in here.
Within this 1 square?
In here, yes.
Okay, good.
And there was a bathroom, and there was another little kitchenette room and stuff. Well, across the back part, the frame was open, the wood pieces, the 2x4s they make the walls out of, it was open, and 2 of my offices, these 2 were back here. Well, the man who owned the adjoining office came along about the 2nd week that I had the property, and I met him when I went over to the office to introduce myself and find out about the dues and stuff. He came over and he closed this off, And one of the things that was interesting
Now,
was...
did he come in your unit to do this and you
No,
didn't know
he did it from his unit.
Oh, so he went and made a special door and came in here?
Yeah, there was
and
already...
he built a wall.
Yes, and he closed in the wall. So I actually was coming there with my attorney, who was doing the quiet title, to show him the space.
Right.
And we walk in there, and instead of my office being this big, my office was...
Half of that?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So he just took over part of your property?
Yeah. My 1,000 square feet, he took almost half of it.
Almost 500 square feet?
Yes, and closed it off. And because he had some old plans that had been done in 1994. This office complex was built in 1986.
But he didn't own this?
But he didn't own... No, that was mine.
He was just stealing your property?
Yes.
He was just taking possession of it?
He was trying to take possession of what showed on some old plans but had never been done. And but you know, I did the research like you taught us to do, and I knew all about the shape of the property and all that sort of thing. And so I was just shocked because I wanted to show the attorney the office, and half my office is gone, or almost half my office is gone.
Wow.
And so in addition to doing this little quiet title, we also had to do, I learned all these new words, and one of them was ejectment.
Ejectment.
But it was not the guy who goes to football games and shoots the T-shirts.
Oh, okay, okay.
This was get rid of this guy out of my space.
Wow.
And he chose to hire his own attorney and fight it. So instead of me getting my office, and the worst part, Ted, is that I had not one but 2 people within that first 2 weeks interested in buying this condo.
Oh, no. And you were ready to sell, but you couldn't sell.
Right, but I couldn't sell because both of them wanted me to make sure that the title was okay for them to get title insurance, which is totally fine. You know, this was a pricey thing.
Legitimate.
I paid little more than $35,000 for it. And
what was the whole thing worth?
Oh, it was assessed at $98,000.
So there's $100,000 you bought for 35?
Yes.
So 35 cents on the dollar.
Yes.
Well,
I follow your rules.
That was a pretty good deal. Yeah.
I don't want to lose my money.
Okay.
And so I had a contract, a verbal contract, that I could sell it to one person for almost $75,000.
Wow.
And I could sell it to the second person for $65,000. But they both wanted a clear title so that they could do, you know, their
They didn't
thing.
want to get into the mess you were in.
Right, that was my responsibility to do, and that was fine. I was thrilled. I mean, to make that much money, oh my gosh, double my money.
Wow.
And so, but then when they did this,
when they, you mean this guy took
when
your
this
space?
guy came in and blocked
he basically
off part
stole
of my
your
office.
property.
Yeah,
Or he tried to anyway.
Tried to take it as his.
Yeah.
And so then, all of a sudden, my instantly sold property wasn't getting sold. We had to go to court. We went before the judge several times, and I had a very excellent lawyer. And you've actually spoken to him and had him speak to some of your clients, and he was extremely well prepared. He went through the Ted.Thomas School of how to be prepared, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
although he's never taken
attorneys
your
win
courses.
if they're prepared. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And so even though the other attorney and the judge appeared to be very good friends, like golfing buddies or something, and my attorney was not, he's newer and all that sort of thing, he was so well prepared that we walked out of there and the judge just told the other attorney, you need to settle this. I don't want you back in here. And they chose not to. And it was probably the gentleman who had the office next door to me. So 10.5 months later,
oh my goodness,
finally we got the final judgment, and they had to leave and get out.
Now, what ultimately did the attorney show the judge that convinced the judge that you owned that whole thing? What was the actual proof?
The actual proof was that the condo documents, which have to be recorded with the county, they're public records, there had never been any kind of an adjustment or an amendment or a change that changed the square footage of any of the offices in this building.
So you're saying the county record showed that everybody owned a plot like that?
Right.
Okay, and now this guy came along and took this and claimed that made some other claim. He was just trying to steal it.
Right.
Now, if he had stole that, how much would he have stolen from you? $30,000 or more?
More like about $50,000.
He would have stole $50,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so what's the lesson here? The lesson is, this is less than a perfect business. It's not perfect. I can't tell you it's perfect. Things like this happen. We don't know that someone's going to do that. So when she bought this plot, so to speak, when she bought that, she thought she had the whole, but she ended up with half because this guy tried to steal it. and she did have to get an attorney and go through it. Now, let's. Did this story have a happy ending?
Yes, absolutely, because one of the interesting things was this particular example called into question whether or not you can believe the county and believe their records. And that was how we won the case, because if you can't trust the county and what the property appraiser says is the property, then how can we do anything?
Okay, so that goes back to one of the premises of real estate.
Yes.
It says if you want to find something out, it's at the county records. And anybody that wants to know that, that's called constructive notice. You'll hear that again. Don't need to memorize it now. Constructive notice says this is at the county records. It's the law. So that's what the guy went for. And so the law was on his side, and he could say that. So all the other claims were just thrown out.
Right, yes.
Yeah. Meanwhile, this guy, for the small price of an attorney, almost stole half of your property.
Right, and his attorney cost probably, I would guess, because he was a real high-priced attorney from one of the big firms and everything.
Oh, yeah.
He probably paid as much for his attorney as I paid for the whole office.
Really? Wow. So that was not.
Yes.
All right. Well, that was a good thing. All right.
Yeah.
So the good thing is that we had a happy ending. The bad thing is that took 10 long months to do that.
Yes.
Okay. So how did that change you in your approach to looking at what you first learned in school, in the classroom, and then you learned from materials, to doing a few deals? So how did that change you in your viewpoint of what you're doing here?
Well, I learned that it's extremely important to do this research and to know what you're buying as much as you possibly can. And but I also learned not to give up. It didn't make me lose my taste for the business or anything like that. It actually encouraged me to do more, because here's another case of the big guy trying to put down the little guy. And he thought he was going to win. And of course, it doesn't help that my name is Puff and I'm a blonde.
Yeah.
And so, but no, it was a very good learning thing. It also helped me tremendously in the coaching that I do, because it helped me present to the people that I work with to make sure that they were checking everything and knowing what they were doing and dotting those I's and crossing those T's. And but it taught me a lot about commercial real estate, because this was my first commercial deal, and it didn't make me afraid to go after commercial properties.
Okay,
it actually
so now let's
encouraged me.
segue that into a couple other things. So the average person that goes to a real estate course or learns tax, they're always thinking about houses. They just think 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, blah, blah, blah. But you've discovered over just a short period of time that there's a lot of other things involved.
Yeah.
So we're going to show a picture in just a minute, or they can be showing it while I'm talking. But you actually went and bought a boat slip.
Yes.
Okay, now, so tell me about boat slip. What is that all? Did they condominiumize those? What happens out there with those things? Kind of tell our audience a little bit about that.
Well, you know, it's really funny, because I bought the boat slip the same time I bought the office condo.
Was it the same?
Same auction.
Same auction. Okay,
Same
good.
auction,
All right, good.
yes.
All right.
And so this particular boat slip was in a real high-end community, condos and patio homes on the water.
Good.
In
We have a
North
little video
Florida.
of that we're going to stick in here while we're talking. Okay,
And
good.
beautiful place. But they have regulations and rules similar to the condominiums. The way this all happened is the people who bought the condominium just thought they automatically had the boat slip included, even though they were two totally separate purchases. But because they bought, you know, a place to live and a place to park their boat,
Now
they thought
explain
it was
it.
one.
When you say it's two different purchases, you mean they're going to have two different tax numbers. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So the county sells tax numbers, not addresses, not property. They sell tax numbers.
Right.
So they could have paid their condo dues and tax numbers, but they didn't pay what?
They didn't pay the boat slip dues
Okay.
or
And
taxes.
so that's what you bought.
And that's what I bought.
Okay. And so now you got a boat slip. Okay.
So then I had this cool boat slip.
Okay, that was good. Okay.
That was
and I
great.
went there. I saw that. We're
Yes,
going to
you
show a little
saw it.
video clip
Yeah.
of that. So the point was that was a pretty nice place and pretty swishy, as I remember it.
Very.
And so what did you do with that?
Sold it.
Just flat sold it? Or did that work out okay? Or what happened?
that was an interesting situation too, because once it,
Okay. That was an interesting situation, too. It means it wasn't perfect, folks. Okay, so tell us about it. That's what I want people to understand. There's nothing perfect about this business, right?
No.
It takes what? You got to use your head, and you got to be, don't panic just because it wasn't
Right,
perfect.
yeah.
Because we're not buying 3-bedroom, 1-bath houses in your case.
no, I buy everything.
Yeah, exactly.
This is
That's
too
it.
fun.
Right.
Yes.
So just because you bought the condo, you had money that you wouldn't have had, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and now you bought a condo boat slip, so now you can have money that you wouldn't have had. The
That's
average
right.
person saying, if it's not a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, I'm not buying it.
Oh, what a mistake. We'll talk about my garage later.
Okay, good. And so that's another one we're talking about. Now, when we talked to John earlier, remember John said the first one he bought was a property. Okay,
Right.
and he has a contractor.
Yeah.
A contractor. And, all right, and what do? They know how to fix houses, right? This
Right.
guy didn't do that. He bought something he could sell quickly, which is the name of the game here. All right, so let's go back. I interrupted you. What did you buy?
So I bought a boat slip.
Good.
And I thought I was going to sell it real quickly too, but
Right.
again, this was a higher price property. I paid $20,100 for this.
But what was it worth?
It was assessed in the high 90s. I believe it was 98, 96. The two properties were very similar in
You're talking about a $100,000 boat slip?
Yes. Can you believe people spend that much to park their boat? Wow. I didn't even spend that much on my last 3-4 cars added together.
That's really? Okay.
But it was very nice.
Okay.
It was a very nice boat slip.
Okay.
And we have to build them here in Florida so the hurricanes don't knock them out.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah,
Yes.
okay, good.
And so anyway, this also I had to do a quiet title on in order to sell it. And because the first person who wanted to buy it, that was his deal. He wanted, an okay title where he could get insurance.
Now, can I stop you there? If you had a property today and someone said, I want to buy it, you'd say, I'll sell it to you, but you have to do what? Do your own quiet title, right?
That's what I'm doing with one I bought just last week.
Okay, you tell them they got to do the
Yes.
quiet title, and if they want, you'll pay for it or something like that. But they got to do it so you can get the deal done, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
could you sell the property today, sign the document today, so you know you got a deal, subject to that quiet title being done? Would that
Yes.
be? That's a
Yes.
legal deal to do that,
Yes,
right?
that's what I've
Okay,
learned.
so someone that's out there doesn't have to worry about buying a property and waiting 4 months.
No.
They could sell it now based on a subject to, right?
Right,
Okay,
exactly.
that's good. All right, now
Yeah.
let's go back to you. I keep
Yeah.
interrupting, but I want to make
Oh,
sure we
no,
make
that's
all
okay.
these fine
Yeah.
points, because these are the challenges you had, but you worked your way through it. You kind of boxed them a little bit and worked
And I
on it.
have Ted.Thomas to call and talk to.
Yeah, well, I get kind of nasty when people kind of push me around, so I
Me
fight back a
too.
little bit. Yeah, okay.
That's what happened here was somebody was pushing me around.
Okay, good.
And I didn't like that.
Yeah,
So
good.
I got
We got rights.
Yes.
We got rights. Okay,
yes.
good. All right.
And so what ended up happening is this had been an older couple who owned this boat slip.
I see.
And she had some health issues. And while I could have sold it and made $45,000, for some reason I didn't do that.
Uh-oh.
I ended up letting it go back to these people.
What do you mean go back to them?
Meaning I let them buy it back from me.
Oh, so you sold it back to them.
Yes,
oh,
they were
okay.
living in Georgia, and
Oh, yeah.
we're in Florida.
Uh-huh.
And so, but I still made money. I sold it back to them for over $35,000.
So over
so-
35, but how much profit did you make then?
$15,000.
Oh, my
Well,
God.
slightly less than
Okay,
that because I
okay.
had to pay the
All
attorney
right, well, you can
fees,
use a
but-
round number. We
yeah.
don't have to. All right, so you have to pay
Yeah.
an attorney. All right, so you bought it, but you still made a $15,000 profit.
Yes.
So did that make a pretty good month? Was that a pretty good pay for a month? That was good?
Absolutely.
That was
and
good?
and we didn't have to go to court on this one. We were able to work it out. But once again, little blonde here with a goofy name.
Yeah.
They hired a real high-priced lawyer and a big law firm.
Well,
and
that was too
everything.
bad for those attorneys.
Yes.
Yeah, what the hell.
And we won.
Yeah.
And so, so what ended up happening is, yes, I didn't quite double my money.
Okay.
$20,100 plus the attorney's fees. I made, $35,000. What's the difference there?
Yeah. So you made
$15,000.
10 to 15,000 bucks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but it happened between the 18th of January and the 15th of April is when I got my check.
Okay. So in both of those cases, that delayed everything because there was some difficulty.
Yeah, it just delayed
So it
it a
wasn't
little
the quick
bit.
sale
Yeah.
that I like to see. I like to 30
Oh,
days.
yeah.
I like to be rid of
Yeah.
all this stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like John does. 21 days, he's out of there.
Yes.
That's my kind of deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the things that I'm starting to figure out, I think, is that the lower price properties, like my lot for $1,500, that there was no complication, nothing. It was just easy.
Right.
When you get into the higher price
Well,
properties,
people will fight then.
yes, you do have to take into consideration that you may, not always, but you may run into some of these little situations.
Excellent.
So if we're prepared for it, then it's not a surprise.
All right.
And the other thing is, you don't stop going to the auctions. You don't stop doing what you're
Good.
supposed to be doing.
Good.
Because if you just sit there and wait for one property, you're going to wait a long time for your money. So you just
Right.
keep on going while this is happening in
So
the
you got a
background.
lot of deals working at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're kind of
Yeah.
like playing chess or
Right.
checkers or something.
Yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
things to think about.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's good. So really what we're talking about here is we're talking about the world of the weird. You got to understand,
Oh, yes.
this is the world of the weird. This is not everyday real estate where you go buy a 3-bedroom house, paint it, put a white picket fence around it. It's none of that stuff, okay? That's for all the realtors to do, all those guys that are telling you you're going to make money on foreclosures and you're going to lose your butt. This is the real deal where you're going to make $10,000-15,000 a deal and keep moving, but each one of them is different, so you have to use your noggin a little bit here, because once you're out of the class, I can't teach you unless you come back and get on our telephone calls. All right, so so now we're talking about two kind of weird ones, but I think you had another one. What was that? Was that a trailer or a rental or a garage? What was that one?
Yes. Well, you've hit on 3 different ones.
All right, good.
But every deal is completely different,
Good.
just like a lot of other things in life.
Right.
And some of them have these little glitchy, oopsie things.
Good.
And some of them are much smoother. The one that in my mind so far is the absolute biggest disaster, and it wasn't a disaster at all because I still made money,
Right.
but that was a mobile home that I bought.
Now, why is it a disaster? Because it was all the unexpected, or what,
It
what
was
do you think?
totally unexpected.
Okay.
I went to see it, and usually I drive by the properties most of the time just once because there's a number of properties to look at in the counties that
So
I
you're
live
just driving by in your car and you're
Yeah, I
taking a
drive
look.
by, I take pictures, I see if there's anybody to talk to in the neighborhood to find out what's going
get it.
on,
Okay.
that sort of thing. But in this case, for some reason, and it happened, that this little area, it's not a mobile home park, but it's an area that's primarily mobile homes and a couple of houses. Actually,
So it's like this county property instead of city property has different rules
no,
or something?
it's city. It's
Yeah?
right behind where the boat slip was located and all the high-end condos.
So you got high end here but low end
Yeah,
over there.
right next door, except, there's trees in
Really?
between them.
Really? Okay.
But anyway, so I bought this property, we get our deed,
Yeah.
and we go to see it, and it took a little bit of time to get into it because somebody was actually living in it.
Oh, my
Now,
goodness.
I knew there was a problem with the roof because there was a tarp on it.
Yeah.
But the place looked fine. It wasn't that old, and, it just didn't look like it was a problem. Whoa, was I surprised. We finally got inside. It took a little bit of time to get in contact with whoever owned the place or whoever was living there. He turned out not to be
Usually the
there.
county gets rid of all those people before you get there, right?
Not in my experience.
Okay, in your county they don't do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
all
they
right,
don't
good.
do that. They put up notices. Now, a lot of times
Okay.
people just leave.
Yeah.
But, so anyway, once I finally got a hold of the guy, he turned out he was a very nice man. He was living there. He was going to school in the medical field. And he let
Is he
me...
a young guy or what?
Relatively, yeah. Upper 20s, I believe,
Oh, that's
maybe
young.
lower
In my
30s.
world, that's like a
Yeah,
baby.
really,
Okay,
that's
yeah.
like a kid.
All right.
And so I went inside,
Uh-oh.
and I happened to have a contractor with me
Oh, boy.
just to see what I needed to have done.
Right.
And, oh my God, it was a death trap. I mean,
Really?
there was a leak in the roof over by with this one area where the tarp was,
Yeah.
but there had been all kinds of leaks that you couldn't tell from outside.
Okay.
The kitchen had a cooler
Okay.
that was there to catch the water that came in through the roof, but it was also holding up the kitchen cabinet.
Oh, dear.
And there were vines growing in the window, and
So basically this is a disaster.
oh, it was awful. And
So is this a tear down or pull it
that's
out of
what
there and destroy it?
I
or what?
figured this was absolutely a tear down. It turned out not to be the mobile home that was in the county
Okay, I'll put
records.
you in the hot seat now.
Yeah.
Okay, what's this lot worth?
The lot was worth about 18 to 20,000, as I remember.
Okay, and what'd you pay for it?
I paid $7,500. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
good. All right.
yeah.
So you are basically buying it for its lot value, not for the...
No, I'm wrong. Because I was following totally the rules. The lot was worth up there, so the whole property was worth about $80,000. And
Well, how
but
can it be worth...
I-
if the trailer's no good, how can it be worth $80,000?
Well, the county didn't know the trailer was no good. They didn't care. They were charging
Oh,
taxes.
you mean the county assessed it for $80,000?
Yeah, they assessed
But when
the
you
whole
got there, that
property.
thing wasn't worth $80,000.
No.
Okay.
It wasn't worth 80
So
cents.
this is a tear down or haul it off the lot, right?
Yes, this is
And
an
now what is the lot worth?
The lot was worth about $20,000 or $30,000, as I remember.
Okay, so let's say
yeah.
it was 20, and how much did you pay?
And I paid the $7,500, a little
Okay,
less.
so
than
you were okay because you could sell the lot
Oh, yeah.
for $10,000
Yeah.
bucks and get out of
Yeah.
there.
This was
Okay.
when I learned that when you are buying a property that has a mobile home on it, you buy the dirt, and it doesn't matter whether it's a piece of junk or a palace. It is of no consideration. All you care about is the land.
Okay, and so what you really want to talk about here is that when there's a mobile home on there, that has nothing to do with the real estate. That's personal property. So you could have arrived the next day and that mobile home could have been gone
That's a possibility, yes.
because it's
It's
personal property. Okay.
Even if it's attached to the land.
So
as
what
far
did
as
you
how
do with
they-
the personal property?
Well, part of the reason this wasn't such a great deal is when I saw it, I didn't want the liability. I couldn't even get insurance on this. because it didn't have the right kind of stairs going to the front door and just all these problems.
It's a mess.
So I paid the gentleman who was living there. I found out what it would cost for him to live where he was near medical school. And I paid him $400 to leave and clean out the house and $400 to leave and clean up the property. Because
$800 you paid him.
Yeah.
All right.
And I sold it as fast as I could and ended up, I did marketing because Ted had been sitting on my shoulder, as we've heard from other people saying, and saying, market, 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 sell, sell, sell.
And what did you sell it for?
I sold it for $9,000, which is not really impressive, but at the same time, I had handed out, well, I didn't even hand out the flyers. I was talking to the neighbor across the street.
So it was a break-even deal.
Yeah. But we still made 4%. And I mean, the man who was living there made more in money than we did.
He did.
But yeah, it ended up being
So what is the lesson that we want to teach everybody?
Well, my biggest lesson that I learned on that one was that when you are looking at mobile home property, you are looking at, as I always say, the dirt. You are not looking at any building that is sitting there unless it's a permanent building like that.
They're not paying the taxes. The mobile home isn't worth the shit.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And I also learned, and I have learned with 2 other properties a little bit more recently, sometimes the county records are not totally correct with what is actually within those 4 walls.
Right, exactly. All right, that was good. All right, so now we've covered 3 different unusual ones, okay? Do you have another one?
Well, I've got these 2 that I bought. There's 2 unusual things.
Okay.
And you've known me for almost 2 years that I've been doing this, so you know that sometimes I make mistakes, and that's how I learn. So I made another one. And last September...
That's because you do stuff. When you do stuff, you make mistakes.
That's true. That's true. But the thing that's really cool is that as long as I stay within the rules that you've taught me, it doesn't hurt too badly. It hurts to be stupid. Hey, folks.
Well, you hate like hell to do all that work and then break even. You want to make some money. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's the only one that's been a break even. I've made money on everything else.
Okay, good.
But I bought 2 different houses, and I bought them for another investor who was one of those investors that likes to go in and fix them up and put tenants in them and make money. And I didn't collect the money up front. They had a sob story, and I thought I knew them from one of the real estate groups that I go to and all that, and it just didn't happen. So I ended up with 2 properties that were properties that I would not have bought for myself. I still bought them within the parameters of the rules, but they weren't something that I wanted to have. So they were supposed to be 3-bedroom, 1-bath homes. Not one, but both of them were 2-bedroom, 1-bath homes.
Oh my goodness! So the county records show they were 3-in-1s.
Yes.
And now they're 2-in-1s. Okay.
And this is another reason that I have some friends that are excellent real estate agents, but there are many real estate agents out there that aren't excellent. One of these houses had been for sale, and it had been someone who had supposed to have gone in and fixed it all up and everything. So when I was doing my research, I actually found the listing and everything. So I thought I knew exactly what this house was because there were pictures there. I knew what it looked like inside.
Wow.
And when I went to look, nobody lived there at the time, so I peeked through one window. All the windows were covered, but I saw the yard and that. So I thought I knew what I was getting. And sometimes you just don't know what you're getting. So I ended up with 2 houses that were only 2 bedrooms instead of 3 bedrooms. I ended up with a house that, according to the real estate information, had all new plumbing, all new air conditioning, electrical.
Wow, that's a lot.
All these things within the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And it didn't have all those things.
Oh, dear.
And so that was definitely a lesson learned in that I will not buy a property for anyone else who was someone who doesn't do tax auctions. And they wanted a property really, really low priced that I would sell them to at a low price. Now I wouldn't do that. I want all the money up front. I would never do that again.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. All right. So in kind of summary, so each one of these deals had a little bit of difference to it, and there wasn't anything that was that exact cookie cutter deal.
I haven't had one yet.
Yeah, it seems that everyone has some little challenge. So I always call this the world of the weird, and I come from the foreclosure business, and that's the way it was all the time. There was always something unusual going on. And so the beauty of the business is that there is all this weird stuff going on, and so everybody else is going to give up on those properties.
Yep.
So you didn't get $1 million in profit over this, but you certainly got 10 to 15% of that over the past 1.5 years or 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to continue to do that. So what's your message to people that are just getting started, that, you know, they go to seminars or nowadays everybody learns about these get-rich-quick things on the internet.
Yes.
You know, there's another, you know, every time you open your email, there's another get-rich-quick thing in there, right?
Yes.
And so people are buying into that, and they don't realize what they're doing. So what's the message here with regard to tax liens and deeds? It's certainly not a get-rich-quick program. What is this? Is it a well, you tell me.
It's a way that we can make money with the least amount, in my opinion, of risk.
Okay, good.
The properties are the least expensive to buy.
Okay.
I don't care if you're talking short sales or bank-owned properties or foreclosures or what. This is the lowest way you can buy a property, the least expensive way you can buy it, unless somebody gives it to you.
All right.
And sometimes they do that too. But and you can make
nobody
money.
out there would ever believe someone would give you a property. Now we could talk about that, and we'll do that in another
That's
session.
another weird one.
That's right. People will give you a property, won't they? They
Yes,
just
they
want to get
will,
away from it,
just
right?
to get you to pay the taxes so their credit isn't wrecked.
Exactly. I mean, we could talk about it in another
Yeah.
class. Okay.
But that's the biggest thing, is that you can buy these properties really low, and if you're not greedy and if you follow the rules that you have taught, then you can sell low, but you can still make money. You can make just as much money and sometimes more than if you kept these properties and fixed them up and took, 4 months or 6 months or 8 months, and then of course you got to market them and sell them that way too.
Right.
And but you don't have to do that, because you can turn them over, generally speaking, real quickly.
Yeah.
And I mean, even in the worst case scenario, okay, it took 10 months to go through the office condo, but in real life, it was only 10 months. Look at all the people that are out there trying to sell their houses, and their houses have been for sale for 2 years and 3 years.
Okay.
So,
All right,
but
well,
it's
let me
easy.
conclude because we're going to run out of time. For those of you that don't know, Puff is now a coach. She's done 10 or 15 deals, so she's become a coach, and she helps people do that. So if you want someone like Puff that's been through some of the trials and tribulations, well, you might want to talk to Kim or Don in the office, and they'll tell you how you can touch base with her. So I'm Ted.Thomas, and this is
Puff Darlin,
And you live where?
Jacksonville, Florida.
But you coach where?
Everywhere, all across the world, thanks to you.
Okay.
I have clients in Thailand, in Canada, here, there, all over the place.
So that all can be done on webinars, right? You can do it on webinars, and you can use it on the telephone, right?
I've learned how to do something called Skype to talk to my lady in Thailand and in Canada, because then we don't pay high phone bills. We do things online. We do things on the telephone. We meet up. I have one of my clients here right now, and it's a blast. It's just great. I love this business. It's so fun.
Great. So I'm Ted.Thomas. I'll see you next time around.